Now we have to start learning to draw realistically. Learning to draw from observation and trying to make things look like they actually look. So we're going to start from simplest object. If you look at this jar, just a simple glass jar, it's basically a cylinder, so it's round. The walls of the cylinder are round, so we are going to draw it as a cylinder, but it has some complications here, so it's kind of not exact cylinder. We are going to completely disregard all the highlights, the reflections. So our job is just to draw the outlines of the cylinder, jar, draw its correct proportions. So to do that, we will use the help of this, what I call it a drawing stick. But you can use for that any, so what I'm using here, you can just buy it in Walmart or any other grocery store. It's a stick to make tempura, different tempura things, but it's very good for good aid with drawing because it's very thin. You can, some artists use knitting needle. This is some kind of knitting wood. I think this is actually chopstick. Anyway, so what, and you can, if you don't have anything, you can just use your pencil. Pencil is a little bit thicker, so when you're measuring small objects, it's kind of, pencil might just obscure some parts of the object. So I prefer to use these tempura sticks. They're thin enough and they're pretty good for that. So what we need to look at, how we're going to use the stick to aid us with drawing. So first we are going to determine with this stick, we're going to put it right in the center and see if that's the object is symmetrical. Yes, it's symmetrical, so the wall on the right is parallel to the axis, center, vertical axis, and the wall on the left is also parallel to the center axis. So that makes our task a bit easier. Now, next part, we need to determine the top and the bottom of the jar. And now we have to determine the relationship of the top. Okay, we can see that this top is a little bit narrower and here the shoulder is a little bit wider. So I would recommend, let's just measure, actually this is a little bit thinner end, let's just measure with this end so we can know, we would not be confused by a thin end. So what we are going to do, we are going to put our thumb exactly to measure this kind of shoulder, the widest part of the shoulders of the jar. We are going to put it down, see how this is where the widest part of the jar is ending. So there is a little bit rounded portion, we are going to disregard that for now. So now we are going to keep, now when I'm doing this, actually you can see my hand is stretched forward. Now why I need to stretch my hand forward? Because if I have it, see how I moved my hand closer to me, now the measurement completely changed. But if I stretch my hand, also the same would happen if I move my body closer to the jar or further apart from the jar. See how the measurements are changing. So what you need to do, you need to just keep your body very, very still. And then put your thumb, put the end of the stick on one side of the jar and the thumb on another side of the jar to match the width. Now we can flip it. We can flip it, put it from the bottom. Now we have to remember exactly the point where the top of the jar was and put our thumb there. So how many widths of the jar fit into the height? Well, I think you'll notice that it's 2. Plus this little opening on top, that's a plus. So what we are going to do, we are going to disregard the opening for now. We're just going to draw a rectangular shape, and that is going to be our beginning process of drawing a cylinder. Let's start drawing. Okay, so we're going to first draw the top and the bottom of the jar. This is just to help us to situate it on the page. We wanted the drawing to take the whole page. So next step, we're going to start drawing the axis line. Axis, vertical axis. And notice how I'm not trying to draw one line, because one line, if you draw one, and also notice how I'm holding my pencil, I'm just kind of holding it with my pinky. and the balance with the extended tripod hold. But I'm also not focus too much on making this one continuous line as we did in the previous exercise, but my main purpose is to try to make this axis line exactly vertical. Again, what means vertical? Vertical means it's parallel to the edges of the paper. We're assuming that the edges of the paper always vertical. So if we kind of line something up to check, like for example, this drawing stick is perfect for checking your drawing as well. So line it up with the edge of the paper, then kind of move it to see, then move it to another edge of the paper. Okay, another way to check it is, okay, we can get just any clean sheet of paper. Like I'm going to use this clean sheet of paper. What we're going to do, we can line up this sheet of paper with the edge of the paper and put a little mark on this additional piece of paper. Then when we're going to move it up, the mark also will be lining up with the line here. So good job, Paula Parsons. It's matching. Now let's check on this side. This side will be different mark. So here, this mark, exactly the same, and here it's exactly the same. So yes, so in this way we know that this is the vertical line. This is very important to keep your drawings balanced, so your objects would not be looking like they're falling off the page, right? So again, and I forgot to mention that it's best way to, when you draw, to remember the rule when we were doing contour drawing and modified contour drawing and blind contour drawing. We are trying to look at the object a lot of times, majority of times, looking at the object. Looking is the main part of the drawing. So don't be drawing somewhere from your memory without looking at the object. Always make sure that your drawing is lined up with your object, and you always have ability to look and kind of refresh and measure if necessary. Okay, so we have drawn. Remember, we were talking about that from the bottom to the top, it's about 2 widths, right? So from the top, there was always also a little bit of part that we did not include. There was this oval, so let's just kind of go down a little bit so we still have space on top to include that oval. So now we were talking about how the width of the jar was fitting 2 times into the height of the jar. So what we need to do, so if this is the height of the jar plus just a little bit, then we need to divide this space into 2. So approximately, let's find the center, and then after we found the center, we put a little mark, and then again we can check. Now we can choose another side, this side. Let's check from here to here. Let's see if that's the half. Okay, it's a little bit too much, so let's just kind of make this mark here. Now that is our new mark. Okay, and that looks perfect. So now we're going to make this mark a little bit longer. So this is the half of the height of the jar. And remember, we determined that the width of the jar, as I was showing you. Okay, so I'm recording now with a different tool, so you don't really see it exactly as I see it. But I can kind of refresh my memory and see. Let me change it this way. I'm going to see if this is still, sometimes measurements just change. Okay, I'm just kidding, they don't change, it's just sometimes you measure incorrectly. So there is the carpenter rule, check twice, cut once. Okay, so yes, so this is still twice. So what we are going to do on our drawing, we cannot, whatever measurement we did on our object that we see, we cannot just keep the same measurement and put it here. It's not going to match. So here we're just going to get a different measurement, half of this height, half. We're going to take this half and put it like that. Another way, now we have to kind of center it. So to center it exactly, actually what we can do, we can measure this part again in divide it in 2. So let's try to do that to make sure it's precise. Okay, now just maybe a little bit longer, maybe here. Yes, so that's the half. So now we're going to take this half and just make one mark here and 1 mark there. So this is the width of our jar. So now remember how we didn't really draw the bottom of the jar, we just kind of drew the little mark where we wanted the bottom. Now we can draw the bottom. Again, the bottom of the jar is a curvy linear line. It's curvy line because its jar is a cylinder. We are going to draw beginning drawing stage always with straight lines. So now we're just going to draw 2 vertical lines that would be parallel to the axis line. That's what we determined first of all, that the sides are just vertical. Okay, and don't try to make this one perfect line right away, so kind of just draw maybe multiple lines. You can always use eraser afterwards. So, and now we can check again, so make sure that this size is the same as this size, and then we can check here again. Here is the same as here. Here we got a little bit deviation, so here we can just cut it a little bit thinner. Okay, so now let's figure out what's going on the top of this jar. So if this is the top, okay, we're going to finish for now. Let me switch to measuring again. Okay, so I made a little break in recording, and what I did actually, I did lower my drawing a little bit. I realized I wouldn't have enough space. So see, when you start drawing with this simple rectangular line, it's much easier to lower the drawing if you realize you don't have enough space on the top. Because you see what happened here, I measured the width twice. One, let me make a mark here, oops, make a mark here. Let me make sure this is a half. Oops. No, it's much lower. It's hard to draw and hold the phone on the hand. Now I switch to recording with my phone again. Okay, so let me just recheck. So this is the center again. 1 and 2, still a little bit lower. Okay, and okay, so I think this is exactly perfectly the center. Okay, 1, 2, and now we can again compare our drawing if that's really the center. That should be, the center should be with the width. Okay, yes, it matches with the width, perfect. So remembering that this is the width, put your thumb exactly at the width, flipping it vertically, remembering where the top of the stick was, now putting my thumb exactly at the same spot. So now, and the top of my stick now is matching with the lower lip of the opening of the jar. Okay, so this is the widest part of the jar. The opening is smaller, as we can see. This is smaller. So how we're going to determine how smaller? Okay, so I think that kind of trying to measure it in different ways, you're always trying to figure out what is the, you need to find some kind of unit of measurement. So what would be the best unit of measurement to determine what is the space from this top of the back lip of the jar, opening of the jar, to this line that kind of goes across the shoulders, the widest, where the widest part of the jar begins. So what I think I found is measurement. So if I get the half of the width of the jar, oh, okay, so I have to look through the phone. So if I look through the phone, then you see exactly what I see. Okay. Now I measure the half of the width of the jar. Yeah, so that's half and half, maybe just a little bit more. Okay, half and half. Okay. So now half of the widest part of the jar, if I flip this and put it in the center from the top of the opening of the jar, then I think I get exactly the line where the shoulders go. Okay, let me try that in my drawing. Okay, so here, this is the half of the width of the jar. And remember, we kind of determined that the top is approximately here. So my opening, the shoulders will be here. Okay, now I've kind of had to reach to the pencil, so I might have forgotten where that was. Let me recheck and do it again. half of the width of the jar. Yes, maybe just a little bit more right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do there, so this is the shoulders of the jar, and again this is kind of an ellipse line, so they will go kind of curvilinear, but on the bottom the curvilinear line is a little bit even more curvilinear, because whatever is lower, if we are drawing a cylinder, the curvilinear lines, the openings a little bit wider if we look lower, below our eyesight. Like you can see how here the curvature is wider opening, and on top the ellipse, the opening of the jar is a little bit narrower. So now if I look at the jar from if I move my phone down, you can see that the opening actually looks completely different. So now it actually goes, opening goes above, and I don't even see the back side of the opening. So this is because by moving the phone down, I'm kind of, my phone is now my eyes, so I'm lowering my eye level, and eye level is a horizon line, and we're going to talk about it a lot when we study the perspective rules. So this is one of the rules of the perspective, but we're not going to talk about perspective now. We're just kind of going to observe how this curvature is bigger, more open than this curvature. So we're just going to kind of reflect on that, kind of from observation. We're not going to talk about rules right now. Now, another rule of drawing the ovals is that try to avoid drawing ovals like that. Many students draw it like that, kind of looks like a fish eye. So instead of drawing these sharp corners, try to kind of put a little circle in the corners. So when you draw the oval, it will be easier for you to draw, instead of the fish eye, just little rounded corners. So that's what we're going to try to do here. You can draw a little circle here, oops, little circle here, and when you draw the oval, just try to kind of make it nice and round. The same here, just little circle here, little circle there, and when we draw this opening, the kind of curvature of the shoulders. Okay, now how the shoulders going? So this is the when first I showed you kind of when we measure the sizes, the proportions, then we have to measure vertically, horizontal only vertical, horizontal flips. Now there is another way of determining proportions of the objects, and it's called angling. So the angling, for example, it's hard to measure how exactly is it going at this angle, so but what we can do, we can put our stick exactly how this angle of the shoulders go, and then we're going to just keep the same angle and put it on our drawing. Now this is hard to do, so you will kind of have to keep the drawing next to the real object and do it exactly when kind of we look at both at the same level. So let me use another recording device to do it. Okay, so this is how we're going to do it. So we're putting the measuring stick exactly to match the angle of the shoulders, and then I'm going to keep it in my whole hand. When the hand is stretched, I'm going to put it on my drawing. So here I'm just going to remember this angle and draw it exactly as I see it. And first remember, there is no curvature. When you first draw, it's just a straight line. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. This way and that way. So I'm kind of going to draw it this way. Straight lines, no curvature. So now we're going to add the curvature. This little circle here, little circle there, and we're going to draw around this circle. Make it a little bit more curvilinear. So now where these lines cross with the top line, and the top line, remember that was, I think it was kind of in the center of this opening lip. So about here is another kind of smaller cylinder goes, smaller cylinder, and another oval. another oval. So when you draw the oval, it's always a good idea to draw the kind of like a center line through the oval. Here, every oval has a little center, a little kind of curvature there. Now it goes here, here, and here's another oval, so we'll draw little circles here and here. So that's the center of our opening. So that's a smaller opening. So that's the top oval. So we finally made our jar. So now what we are going to do, we just can now erase all the construction lines. Erase the construction lines and the lines that we do not need anymore. We can erase these little circles that helped us first, but now we don't need them anymore. And here is our jar. Now, if you want to go for more details, such as the this kind of lines, you can do it, but we are not really going to worry about these lines and shading. We're just going to be happy that we captured the proportions of this jar. You can draw, we can see a little bit of the back of this opening here, so we can draw that, but we don't really see it that much. We see some highlights. And what I see here in this drawing is just this oval is a little bit uneven on both sides. We're just going to try to make it even. Alright, here we go, and this is done.